news started leaking out around, I mean, I'd say probably 2 or 3 in the afternoon. By 4 or 5, it would have been confirmed Boo is no longer with the team. I think everybody pretty much figured that yesterday when he wasn't even in the stadium. So, Reed, we'll start with you real quick. What are your thoughts about that whole situation?
Yeah, my first thing, and maybe that's not everybody's first thing, is that it's just a sad situation all around.
Agreed.
I've watched a lot of Tennessee football, covered a lot of Tennessee football, and you see kids come in that have a ton of potential and don't realize that potential at Tennessee. And sometimes it works out for them somewhere else, and I certainly hope that's the case for Boo. I'm not the type of person who roots for anybody to fail, except Florida this weekend. But other than that, I hope it works out for him. But largely, it's just a lot of really sad stories of guys that haven't been able to realize their God-given ability, whether due to just there's so many factors that go into that. He's a kid, sophomore in college. I'm 38 years old. I'm a lot different than I was when I was a sophomore in college. So hoping he can grow up some and find a spot. And it could be a wake up call for him. But that's my biggest thing. Is I think it's just a sad situation. I don't blame Tennessee, Heupel, at all. I think they gave him every chance that logically they could have in this scenario, and then it comes to be a time where you've got so many strikes, then you got to be out.
Absolutely. Rustin, what about you?
Yeah, there's a lot of rumors flying around, and I would bet that by probably 1 or 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, we're going to know the exact story, because that's probably around the time that Josh and Swain will tell us the whole story. If you are in Knoxville or follow the sports animal, I would encourage you to watch Josh or listen to Josh and Swain tomorrow, and I think you'll probably hear the entire story. I go back to the summer, and Heupel was put in a difficult place. I wish, hindsight's 2020. All indication was the majority of the team didn't want him back, and I wish Heupel had sided with them and never started this mess. As Reed said, we have followed that kid for a long time. The history of issues are not new. They're not recent. This has been going on for a very, very long time. And unfortunately, people in his life who have tried to provide accountability have not done it well. And so he's never really felt what true accountability and responding to that looks like. And the people who have attempted to do accountability well, he has not listened to. And, as a result, he has surrounded himself with people who also don't want to hear what real accountability sounds like. And so he has no concept of what the real world is going to do to him. I hope somebody gets in his ear and gets him away from the people that are leading him astray and helps him figure out how to turn this thing around, because he is extremely immature, and he's surrounded by a lot of people exactly like him.
Yeah, to Rustin's point there, we've been watching this kid in Chattanooga because, we're here in Chattanooga, and Boo grew up in Chattanooga. We've been watching him play football on high school football field since he was in 8th grade. When he was in 8th grade, he was starting at running back for a very good high school program right here in Chattanooga. And he was, you could just tell this kid is different. Like there is something different here. He is just an incredible athlete. And, the whole city was excited to see what would happen with him, where he would go to college and that kind of thing. Things kind of got sideways with him for a minute there in high school, and he ends up at Bradley Central, has a great senior year at Bradley Central, goes to Tennessee. That first year in Bradley Central, he became literally the very first high school athlete in the history of the state of Tennessee to have an NIL sponsorship as a high school kid. He was the very first one. It was a big deal that Josh Heupel got Boo Carter to come to Tennessee because he was the number one athlete in the state. So if you can't lock down your own state, well, what are you going to do? And so it was a big recruiting deal. But man, he just, like Rustin said, the people that he has chosen to receive advice from are feeding his ego. And I invite everybody to think about James Pierce Jr. and Joshua Josephs. Uber talented kids, they get to Tennessee. Joshua Josephs has the better freshman season. But James Pierce Jr. decided, no, I'm going to go to work. And I'm going to put in the effort and the hours. And he turns around and has an incredible sophomore year and starts putting his names up on draft boards, waiting for the end of the next season. And Joshua Josephs even said during the season last year, James Pierce Jr. worked harder than I did. And you can be as talented as you want to be, but when you get to this level, you still have to bust your tail to work your tail off to develop your skills.
Or at the bare minimum, show up when you're supposed to show up.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
We're not even talking about someone who didn't put in the extra work. We're talking about somebody who didn't put in the minimal work required of you. And
right.
And what's tough, I feel it's not like he didn't have guys in that secondary room that weren't great players that worked their tail off. He had guys he could listen to. And it's not a failure of Heupel or Tennessee on the eval either. Like you had to take him. You look Michigan, Ohio State. Look at his offers. Florida. All the top schools in the country offered him. So it's not a eval failure. I'm sure they knew that it was going to be challenging when they took him. And you just hope that it works out, and you hope that he grows up in college and structure and oversight and all that, and he hasn't yet. So just as a human being, hope he can figure it out wherever else he ends up.
Absolutely.
If you include high school, because you have to assume probably by the end of Christmas break he'll know where he's going. If you include high school, this will be his fifth school in 3.5 years.
Not a great sign.